Hello and welcome.
Hello, hello.
Yes, welcome to Live with Jesse and Melva. You looking alive?
Well, thank you.
You hope so, huh?
Well, you always look alive.
We are live, alive, and ready to go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We are continuing our series on secrets to lasting love. So, the fact that we have been working together over 4 decades since I was a baby and have been married 43 and a half years um, of our time together.
Our marriage is a baby, too.
Our marriage is a baby, right? So, over all that time, with all of the personal work that we've done, spiritual work, personal work, professional work, we've learned a lot. And excuse me. And so we know that there's a lot of elements to a secret, to a successful relationship and a successful marriage. And so, whether you're married in a love relationship or in a relationship, any relationship that's important to you, we know that you would like to have as much information as possible about how to make that relationship more successful because we go into anything that we say or we do from the framework that people have success already in their relationships. It's the parts that they don't have success that we want to give tips and information and share about some of the things that we learned so that you can upgrade, so that you can pivot to the next level of happiness, connection, closeness, because we only have so much time on this earth. And I think the reason why that is so uppermost in my mind right now, when you start losing family and friends and what have you, for me, I'm thinking about I want every single day to count. And I'm really happy about the fact that we figured out, with a lot of help, uh, we figured out how to make this connection enjoyable. And we really believe that part of our purpose is to share what we have been gifted to learn and apply to our own lives. And what we apply to our own lives, we also apply to our family, our nuclear family, extended family, and our friendship. So I mean, I feel blessed by the relationships that we have. I feel blessed by our relationship, and I feel blessed by the other relationships that we have. Some of the ones that we have individually, most of the ones that we have together because we spend so much time together. And it's really something you spend so much time together and still like each other. Okay.
Well, I was just thinking that when your relationship, especially your primary relationship with a significant other, when that isn't going right, it impacts and influences your whole outlook and how you're experiencing the world.
Yeah.
And that is usually in a very negative way. And so you're not happy and you seem to be stuck and you really don't know what to do about it. Now, on the other hand, when you um, repair your relationship by learning the secrets that you need to learn in order to have a enjoyable life and an enjoyable relationship, your whole world changes for the better. And so that's why it's so important that you allow us to teach you what we have learned about that so that you can experience life in its optimum degree.
Yes. Yes. So that takes us to our third segment on secrets to lasting love. So we covered two so far, and this time we're going to cover secret number 3. So let's start off reviewing secret number one and secret number two. By the time we get finished with the secrets, we're gonna have a long list. So far we covered the first secret that we covered is looking at the pros and cons of what what you're experiencing right now in your relationship. And hopefully there's more pros than cons. I mean, either way, you can still make a decision together or individually. It'll be more fruitful and there'll be more success faster if you make it together. But making a decision to change, and we covered the first time that what you can and cannot change. The only thing that you can change in a relationship is how you function. It would be wonderful if the other person would change, but it doesn't work that way. The other person, their role at a spiritual and unconscious, subconscious level is to step on those landmines that are going to trigger all of us into discovering what is really going on the inside. That leads us to secret number two, where we talked about knowing your psychology. It's so important to know your psychology. And so, what we introduced last time was the introduction to your 7-year old. Now, the 7-year old in all of our lives, we all have that person. We have that little kid inside, and it runs the show at an emotional level. And so, what we invited people to do was to journal. Just take just a week and just journal their thoughts and their feelings and their reactions when anytime there was an upset in their relationship. And if it wasn't upset with their mate, it could be upset with someone else. Because we believe that God, the universe, provides all these different relationship scenarios to give us a tool or give us an opportunity to see what our opportunities are for growth. Because when we come into adulthood, we have a lot of parts of us that are fully developed, mostly our intellect. But in terms of our emotional development, our psychology, some of those parts are either undeveloped or underdeveloped. And so we want to know what they are so that we can grow those parts up. That 7-year old inside of us, we want to get acquainted with that 7-year old line of thinking. When we're triggered and we're feeling a certain way, we want to grow that part up. So we have to get to know that part. So that was secret number two. And so we invited all of you to just pay attention, to journal your experiences, and just to take a look. So that leads us to secret number three. And secret number three is understanding and being aware of impact.
Mm-hmm.
We all have an impact on each other. And since when emotions are running the show, the 7-year old is in charge, here's what happens. When a 7-year old is frustrated, they can become frustrating. When a 7-year old is hurt, they can become hurtful. When a 7-year old is scared, they can become scary. They don't have any tools to react any other way. Right. A 7-year old is reactive, mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And so we want to get to the bottom of that. I mean, so that's really the tip of the iceberg of what's really going on. And we want to know that. It's so important for us to know about that part of us and how we react when things go off track, is because in that moment, we can only see, understand, and react through the lens of survival mode. Because when we think about relationships, we think about the connection. So anytime a connection is threatened, or if the feeling of connection is severed, then to that 7-year-old, there is danger. And see, the 7-year-old thinks in terms of life and death. So there is life and death emotionally uh, to the emotional connection. And that is what you want to be aware of, because that then becomes the work to do. But you don't want the 7-year-old to be in charge of the work to be done. So so it's important to know, and that's what the exercise from last time was all about. It's important to know the kind of data that the 7-year-old um, is gathering data from feelings. It's gathering data from, the scariness, from the hurtfulness, from the frustration. And so the interpretation becomes a story. And that, and that lends to negative thinking. I mean, so the negative story, because see, that 7-year-old catastrophizes
Right.
about what the worst possible um, experience or outcome that they're going to have. So they go right into the future about what could happen when that connection is broken. Now they're trying to get it back, but as adults, we try to get it back, but we're using 7-year-old tactics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they hurt. They hurt. So here's what happened. James and Marion, they did the homework and they did their journal and they jotted down what they were feeling and thinking and how they reacted. And so what they discovered their impact. And what they discovered was they hurt each other when they argued. Um, they got in touch with that whole idea about what happens when a person is affected in a certain way. So what they did, and that's going to be the secret that we're going to talk about next time. What they did was, they just kind of thought about it for a while, and they thought, okay, so in terms of the things that I want to change, one thing that I want to change is I don't want to be hurtful. I mean, I know how the other person, James says, I know how Marion hurts me. Um, I know how Marion frustrates me because she keeps talking about, um, I just want us to have time together. Well, we had time together. We were arguing, James says. She just nags. And so Marion says, I'm just feeling lonely sometimes when I'm thinking we're going to have all of this wonderful time together and you're distracted because you're thinking about this or I mean, if they're having a date, you would think that the two people would be like eye to eye, face to face, and fully present with each other. But the times that James was distracted, he wasn't present. He didn't know how to be present.
I'm thinking about uh, we have been out to dinner before and noticed couples who were not making contact with each other. They were on their cell phone or something of that nature, but they weren't even talking. They were, and this is supposed to be a date. No, this is supposed to be, like you enjoy each other, you enjoy spending time together, you enjoy sharing, and so on. And it's just an example of what you were saying about, you know, um, how something as simple as that just is not very pleasant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, and when you see that one person is on their device, checking their emails or whatever they're doing, and the other person is sitting there like this, very unhappy because the attention they thought they were going to get is not there. The person who's on the the device has no idea that they're having a negative impact
Right.
on the one that they love. They're distracted.
And they probably justify it, like,
Yeah.
well, I just had to check my emails. I was expecting, something important to come through or whatever the excuse was. But Uh, the point is that they're not giving that precious time to their spouse or their mate or their partner, and that can be hurtful.
Very hurtful. And so it leads to arguments, just like you know, those two little kids that we showed before in the previous slide. I mean, there's two kids inside of two adults who are trying to work through something. And when they're pointing fingers at the other person and making the other person wrong, they're missing the point. They're missing the point. It takes two people to contribute to the dream. If two people are working together and they want a successful relationship, and it takes two people to contribute to the nightmare. However, one person can decide, like we talked about, not RSVPing to an invitation to join a interaction that will spiral out of control. We say the same thing about when there's reactions and counter reactions when a couple is having a challenge. One person can decide that they're not going to participate.
Mm-hmm.
We on one of the calls that we did with Brian, I think it was a year before last, we talked about, and we may talk about it a little more in terms of Secrets to Lasting Love. It takes two people to tangle, Tangle, that graceful dance, but it only takes one person to untangle, Tangle. So it only takes one. So, but being aware of whenever a person is aware of their impact, then they're at a place where they can make a choice. They can make a choice that they can keep doing what they were doing,
Mm-hmm.
and continue to contribute to the chaos, or they can decide that they're going to become proactive instead of reactive and interrupt the process,
Right.
interrupt the dance.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to remember who I learned that. Oh, Tony Robbins. So the three steps that he had talked about, I think the first step was be aware of what's going on. I don't think I'm saying that accurately, but it's something like that. But I do remember the other two. So the second step is to interrupt the process. So it's like, sometimes when you're in a role and you're talking about something and you're really excited about it, and then somebody interrupts you in the middle of your sentence, and then they'll say, okay, we'll go back to what you're saying, or you try to go back to what you were saying, and you can't remember. You can't remember. Has that ever happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
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 Has it happened when I interrupt you?
Not nearly as many times as I've interrupted you.
Oh, you're going to tell the truth here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so the same thing works when you are trying to make a change. That you can just interrupt. As a matter of fact, what we recommend to couples is that when you get into that dance that feels so painful, where you're wounding each other, and just concentrating on yourself, feeling the pain, the discomfort for yourself, and not knowing in the process you're also hurting the other person. We advise couples to take an adult time out because the 7-year-old is in charge.
Right.
When you take a time out, then you can give yourself time to reflect, and just reflect on what the heck is really going on. Because that argument between the two of us is the tip of the iceberg of something else going on. So something got triggered in me that is connected to some history. And that history is recorded and stored in my brain, in the 7-year-old part of the brain. And it's also stored in my body. What is this? So taking time to figure out what that is. And sometimes you may not be able to trace it back to the original scene when you had that uncomfortable feeling, But if you have any awareness of what it is when you're reflecting, then after you have that information, then you can say to yourself, okay, so this is what's really going on. Because we often look at a situation and we're thinking that 10% of what's going on in the present is about the present. 90% is about what's going on beneath the surface that's related to the past. It's about a scenario that any of us are feeling that we're repeating once again.
Mm-hmm.
It's a situation where there was some kind of trauma, hurt, or frustration that impacted us in a painful way. And we have unconscious memory of it. We have body memory of it. We have the 7-year-old memory of it. And in that moment, all of those memories come to surface. Now, it's not conscious, it's unconscious. That's why it's important to take time to be reflective, to kind of figure out what's going on within me.
Right. And that's why it's so painful is that, as you said a moment ago, we often think that what we're doing is responding to the present.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are to some extent, but even to a greater extent, we're responding to the past when we were hurt, and that hurt seems to have been repeated over and over and over again in our life. And so every time we have that experience or something similar to it, that's why it's so painful.
Yeah.
So, and the unfortunate thing is maybe both of you responding in a way that you're not even conscious of. You don't know why or what's really going on here, which is the reason why it's so very important that you take a time out and you, I say to people, take a time out, sit down, calm yourself down, and start working through whatever those feelings are, and see if you could trace them back to their earlier beginnings. And it would be a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, just say to yourself, there's some kind of replay, you know, some kind of rerun going on. You know, maybe that's why I'm not really interested in reruns. If I see a movie, it's like, I don't want to see it again. I already saw that movie. If it's a television program, if I saw it before, I don't want to see it again. So I think, you know, maybe that's a metaphor. If I'm re-experiencing something, I'm saying to myself, I don't want to go there again. Well, the truth of the matter is, whether you want to go there or not, that's where your brain takes you.
Right.
So when you go into a state where a reflective state, and it's important that you do it separately, you talk about it afterwards, and we'll go into depth with that at another time. But right now, it's important to know what's going on and to make a choice. So here's where the choice goes. The feelings are real. I mean, they're absolutely real. Right. So you just want to honor them because the feelings are connected to what the 7-year-old is tapped into, the story about what's going on. Now, there's something you can do about that. You can say about the story, you know, in terms of I've been there before, you can say this time, I'm going to contribute to a new story. You can do something about the reaction. And you can say, I can react the way that I did before, fight, flee, freeze, play dead, hide, submit. I can do that. Or I can do something more proactive, something more thoughtful. So that's what James and Marion did when they reviewed their journals. I mean, they were really surprised at what they did individually to create to their argue night nightmare.
That's a good way to put that.
Oh, yeah? Okay. So, you know, paying attention really has a lot of power, and it has a positive impact. So what about you? It's your turn. Do you know your impact when the 7-year-old within you is in charge, when somebody steps on a landmine? Do you know that sometimes when you're frustrated, that you may become frustrating? ouch. Do you sometimes become hurtful when you're hurting? Sometimes. Do you sometimes become scary when you're scared? Well, James and Marion and the two of us, we found out that we could be. And so, but before we could do anything about it, we had to be aware of it. That takes a lot of honesty. Takes a lot of honesty because when you work within the context of growth trying to happen, then this turns out to be an investment into your own personal growth. So when you do the journaling, you may see some things you don't like. You may say, ouch, but just make sure that you don't judge it. It's so important not to judge it. And so if you're open to keeping track, using the same process that we used last time, only this time you will be journaling your reaction when you are triggered by the person that you love. Okay. So if you would like support in taking that first step, we're still offering complimentary consultations. Join us at jesseandmelva.com/consultation. If you want to contact us through our Facebook group, you can join us. It's a free Facebook group. You can join us at Jesse and Melva. What is it? What is it, Brian? Jesse Melva. Tips for success in love, marriage, and life. And there's 2 questions for the only way to register is to answer 2 questions. We found out when you go on the screen, you may just see one question. Scroll down to the second question, answer those 2 questions, and you're in. So thank you again for joining us for Live with Jesse and Melva. We hope that these secrets help you to have a more fruitful relationship. So right now, the secrets that we are talking about, they're secrets to tap into within so that you can bring forth more of the best version of yourselves. That's what we're about. And that's how we want to support you.
Yes.
Until next time, take care.
Watch Live with Jesse and Melva right here on Solivity TV every Sunday at 5:30 Eastern. Solivity Magazine brings you the best in inspiration on Solivity TV. Check out our new shows. Mark your calendars for Solivity Magazine shows by going to solivity.com now.